Going to be talking about Persona 3. So we got some new news. They did an interview with one of the developers of Persona 3 Reload, and they were talking about some changes that they've made from the original game. In the original Persona 3, it was obviously on older systems, and this was two Personas back. They've learned things with each iteration. So there are things that were successful in 4, there are things that were successful in 5, and now they're like, okay, it might be hard for these newer players to go back and play an older game with the older mechanics. So what they've done is they've added some things, but they were saying that they had to play a very fine line, because if, for instance, you go the Final Fantasy VII remake route and you start changing story beats and things like that, you can get a lot of backlash, and it can cause a lot of troubles within the community. So what they wanted to do is they wanted to keep it true to Persona 3, but adapt it in such a way that it is accessible to newer players. So one of the things that they mentioned was this system, I believe they call it Thurgy. And if you've played Persona 5, what a Showtime is, that is if you get a one more on every enemy, so every enemy is down, then you get this Showtime attack, which is like this big attack. And what they were saying here is this Thurgy system is similar to that, but what it is because in Persona, unlike Persona 5, where it's all about a team working together, it's more about the individual and it's less about the group. So, of course, they're working in a group, but it's more about each individual person's journey through Tartarus or whatnot. So, what they're going to do is they have this new third G system, which kind of replaces the Showtime system, but each character has their own conditions to reach it. So by doing that, they're hoping that it's going to allow the characters to shine more as individuals, and because you need to do this conditions for this character to get this special effect or whatnot. So they're adding things like that. The overall story, they're saying, is basically the same. They've been making small tweaks. They say basically they made small tweaks over time. So of course it'll have a significant difference, but there's no one major change. And yeah, and so they're going to do that. And then one of the other things that they said is that in Persona 3 Portable, I believe it is, they have a female protagonist. And there were actually story changes for the female protagonist. They could get to know certain characters in ways that the male protagonist could not. And so, of course, now that they're limiting you to the male protagonist, a lot of people are worried that we're going to be locked out of these extra stories that we once had, but they're actually adding those back in so you can still access them. These were not romance options, but these were just you get to know these people better. And so they're going to be adding those back in. And now you can, they're not going to be the social links or whatever, but they do have it so you can still get to know these characters and see their stories. They're still going to be accessible. And the last bit of Persona news is actually not about Persona 3 Reload, but Persona 5 The Phantom X. And it looks like they may be taking it outside of China. So originally that was the mobile game that was taking place within kind of the same world as Persona 5. And now it was a China only mobile game, but it looks like they are going to be bringing it outside of China. I believe it was the Korean Twitter where they were talking to Sega about that. But yeah, so if you have been missing out on that and you really were curious, it looks like you might get a chance to take a look at it.